Alright, we're back out to pulling plastic. I've talked in previous videos about how I feel using the plastic. I've discussed some alternatives, but right now this is what we're rocking with, and it still is a pretty effective vegetable growing technique to use this black plastic mulch you see here. One thing I haven't talked much about yet, though, is the use of the mower and just managing the weeds in between the beds, but also, all of these grassy areas, we have to stay on top of the mowing around the edges as much as possible. And Jim is he's the guy, he's the tractor guy. He does all of this. He really enjoys it and does a pretty good job of keeping everything that we can use a tractor to manage the weeds and the grasses. We try to stay on top of that through the whole season. And but still, I think we with the weeding, I mean, in between the beds we did a pretty good job, but you can see, like, this is a good example of how in between the beds we're not really on top of the weeding, and this is pretty typical. You've probably seen in other videos what it ends up looking like. A lot of farms, they'll really be on top of that, pulling all those weeds, but then you've got to hire somebody to do that, and doing that meticulous of weeding is really it's tedious, it's hard work. I question a little bit if you need to be that detailed, but maybe this is a little bit it just comes down to, is it hindering the productivity of the other plants? And then when it gets to the point where the weeds are towering over the plants, then yeah, that's a problem, because then you're obstructing the sunlight that they can get. They're just not going to be as productive. But one thing I was thinking about this morning is cover cropping. When you do a cover crop with some, like, peas or some oats or something, where the idea is you're going to grow that cover crop, and then you either can till it into the ground and it's just adding a little bit of topsoil. So that's one way, but I was also thinking about the crimp method, where you kind of just, or you pull those, once those grow up, okay, so you plant them, they're going to grow up in 3 months or so, and then you pull it, you lay it down, and then you're having like a live mulch, or you're directly going from and the idea there is you're not really ever needing to add anything. Everything's happening in place there. Well, you can still add other amendments. Another option is to just really integrate more animals into the system. So if you have chickens, at some point you're running those chickens through that patch of grass, and they're gonna give you a lot of nitrogen deposits, and you can actually be growing the quality of the soil in place. But these integrated systems are more difficult to manage, so it's a compromise. But definitely, if there's an alternative, a good alternative, even if the alternative for the black plastic mulch, if this were not synthetic, I don't even know what's in this stuff. I don't know what the contents are. I'll have to look that up. But if there's anything toxic released, then this isn't a good option. But if there were organic plastic options do exist, but they're prohibitively expensive. I mean, they're 15 times the price. So if we could scale up the production of that just on a macro scale, which I hope happens, and that would be a really great option. But at the moment, it's just not. So those are some thoughts on weed management and the greenest option.